Hello class, I am sorry to be gone once again. This makes like the third week in a row that I've missed something. So I apologize. We are going to be doing the day 3 notes today. We were supposed to do the day 3 notes today and then quiz tomorrow. And then on Thursday do the day 4 notes. What we're going to do instead is we're going to do the day 3 notes today, obviously through this video. And then instead of quizzing on Wednesday, your quiz will now be on Thursday. The quiz on Thursday will only cover day 1 to day 3 material. What we'll do on Wednesday when I return is we'll be doing the day 4 notes. So we'll do them out of order a little bit. We're going to switch what we were supposed to do with Wednesday and Thursday. But then that way at least we have an extra day for you to ask me questions about anything that you saw in the video and when I'm not quizzing you right away when I come back. So that's kind of the plan. Let's look at this stuff. This is all old stuff that we've already been doing. We've been doing a lot with square roots. Obviously, like square root of 81 is 9. You know, square root of 100, you got 10, and then you got the negative out in front. Square root of 0 is 0. This is something that we haven't seen before. This is a plus or minus, which means there will be two answers. One that's positive and one that's negative. So what you'll do is square root of 36 we know is 6. You don't even have to do a factor tree. And then we got the half. Half of 6 is 3. And then you just stick the plus or minus in front. So the answer is positive 3 and negative 3. And you can either leave it like this, or you can do 3 and negative 3 like this. Either one is fine. It's the same thing. It just means there's two answers. 5 square root of negative 16, we've seen this before. It's no real solution. Alright, so we have those. I'm going to skip some of these. Discriminant, this is something that you'll see on the quiz. It's this formula right here, b squared minus 4ac. You won't need to memorize it. It's part of the quadratic formula, which we'll get into soon. You'll be given a, b, and c, and all you're going to do is just plug it in. So like b squared, you got negative 8 squared minus 4 times a, which is 7, times c, which is 1. And then you do negative 8 squared, that's 64, minus 28, and then you're going to get 36 for your answer. Same thing with the other one. You would just do b squared minus 4ac. So b squared, 5 squared, minus 4 times negative 12 times 2. And then you just simplify. Negative 5 squared is 25. And then we have minus 4. Now, if you want to think of this as plus negative, you can. You've got negative 4 times negative 12, which is positive 48. 48 times 2 is positive 96. And then you're combining the 25 and the 96 together, and you're going to get 121. So that's how those work. Down here, these ones are the only problems where we're actually going to be rounding, so you get to actually use your calculator and not do crazy factor trees. You'll see they have plus or minuses. What this means is we're going to have two answers. 3 plus the square root of 8 divided by 5, whatever that is, we'll simplify that in a minute, and 3 minus the square root of 8 divided by 5, whatever that is. So we're going to simplify both of them. We're going to use our calculator. When we use our calculator, we're going to type in just the numerator so that we can avoid any possible errors by trying to type in the whole thing. So type in 3 plus square root of 8. To do square root, you're going to do second and then the x squared button. Second, x squared, and then type 8. And then hit enter. And then you're going to divide by the denominator, divide by 5. And it says to round to the nearest hundredth, you get 1.17. So one of my answers will be 1.17. And then the other one, we'll do it with a minus. 3 minus, we'll do second square root, 8. Hit enter, and then divide by 5, and you get 0.03. So 0.03 will be the other answer. So there's two answers. The plus or minus guarantees that. Number 2, you've got negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 25. Now, square root of 25 is technically 5, so you really don't have to type in the square root of 25 on your calculator. You could just replace it with a 5. But let's say you don't realize it or whatever. You're going to do a negative 4 plus the square root of 25. Hit enter. And then divide by 3. Round, so that'd be 0.33. And then you're going to do it again with a minus. So negative 4 minus the square root of 25. Hit enter, divide by 3, and you're going to get -3 for your other answer. Okay, so it looks like that. Alright, so those are your two answers, and that's how these problems are going to work. Then we have what we're really getting into is solving. We're going to solve using square roots with quadratic equations. Quadratic equations means equations with x to the second in it. Watch out for perfect squares so you don't have to do factor trees. You're going to want to give exact answers only, which means no decimals. Each answer should have a plus or minus, or it's only partially correct. And I'll explain what that means down here. So we have x squared equals 100. All right, x squared means something times itself is 100. Well, if you think about it before even just trying to solve it the normal way, what number times itself is 100? Well, 10 times itself, 10 times 10 is 100. And then -10 times -10 is 100. They both multiply to be 100. So there are two answers. You're going to have +10 and -10. You can write it like that, or you can just do this plus or minus 10 if you prefer. Either one is fine. Now, sometimes it won't be a perfect square, so what will happen is what we essentially just did is we square rooted both sides. We're square rooting the 100, and then we're getting +10 and -10, because both of those numbers, when you square them, you get 100. Number two, what we're going to do is same kind of thing. What you want to do is the goal is to get x squared by itself. So, you want to get rid of this -8 by adding it. So we're going to add 8 to both sides. You're going to get x squared equals 16. And then you're thinking, what number times itself is 16? To get rid of the x squared, you're going to square root it. All right, what number times itself is 16? Well, 4 times 4 is 16. And -4 times -4 is 16. So there are two answers. You can write it like this, or you can do plus or minus 4. So that's why I said each answer should have a plus or minus, because there are technically two answers. There are two numbers that when you square them, you get 16. This one, if you minus 25 from both sides to get the x squared by itself, you're going to get x squared equals -25. Well, when you square root both sides, this time you have square root of a negative, and we've talked about that before. If you have a square root of a negative, that doesn't work. It's going to be a no real solution kind of answer. No real solution. So you don't actually get an answer, you just have no real solution. Let's skip number 4. Let's look at 5. All right, so if you look at 5, we want to get rid of the 2 first. We want x squared by itself. 2 and x squared are being multiplied. We're going to get rid of it by dividing. So you get x squared equals 121, and then you can get rid of the squared by square rooting it. And don't forget your plus or minus. What number times itself is 121? Well, there's two of them, 11 times 11, and then -11 times -11. You can write it like this, or you can put plus or minus 11. Same thing. All right, number 6, this one will work out to not be a perfect square, which we haven't had yet. If you divide both sides by 3, you're going to get x squared equals 60. Now we're going to square root both sides. There isn't a number times itself that's 60, at least not a very nice number. So this is an example where we're going to have to do factor trees, which we've done in the past. So you could do like 6 times 10 is 60. 6 breaks down to 2 times 3. 10 breaks down to 2 times 5. All right, we have a pair of 2's, and then we have a leftover 3 and a leftover 5. Remember, pairs go on the outside. The leftover 3 and the leftover 5 stay under. So you end up with 2 root 15. And then again, because we square rooted both sides, we cannot forget our plus or minus. All right, so the answer is going to be +2 root 15 and -2 root 15. All right, so sometimes it works out nicely where you have perfect squares. Other times, if it's not, you'll have to do a factor tree, but don't forget the plus or minus. Number 7 is a little bit more, a few more steps. We're going to start by moving the 120. Remember, you want to do any addition or subtraction first. So we have -6x squared equals -150. And then we're going to divide both sides by -6. And you're going to get x squared equals, so you're going to get 2 25. X equals 25, positive. Now we're going to get rid of the squared by square rooting it. 25, luckily, is a perfect square. Square root of 25 is 5. And don't forget your plus or minus, because 5 squared is 25, and negative 5 squared is 25. 8 is slightly different, just because we have to start off by distributing the 2. So we get 48 plus 2x squared plus the x squared equals 0. When we combine these x squareds, this is technically a 1x squared. 2x squared plus 1x squared is 3x squared. All right, and equals 0. We want to get x squared by itself, so we're going to minus 48 on both sides. We have 3x squared equals negative 48. And then we're going to get rid of the 3 by dividing it. We get x squared equals negative 16. And then to get rid of the squared, we have to square root. Well, now this time we're square rooting a negative number, and we've talked about that before. Square rooting a negative number is not going to work. So after all that work, our answer is just going to be no real solution. X is not going to be a real number. It'll be an imaginary number. Let's look at 9 real quick. With 9, if you minus 50 from both sides, to start you get 3x squared equals 0. Divide by 3 on both sides, you're going to get x squared equals 0, and then you're going to square root it. Now the square root of 0 is 0. This is the only time where you won't need a plus or minus, because 0 can't be positive or negative, it's just 0. So this is really the only time where you won't need a plus or a minus. And that's kind of how that one works. Let's do one more. We'll just do number 10 and then we'll call it a day. With 10, you would want to start off by adding 80 to both sides. So you have 5x squared equals 90. Get rid of the 5 by dividing it. So x squared is going to be 18. And then you're going to get rid of the squared by square rooting it. 18 is not a perfect square, so you're going to have to do a factor tree. Okay, we're not going to do any rounding or anything like that. 18 breaks down to 9 times 2. 9 breaks down to 3 times 3. We circle our pairs. We have a pair of 3's and a leftover 2. Pairs go out in front, leftovers stay under. And then don't forget your plus or minus when you are done. So x is going to equal plus or minus 3 root 2. All right, so that's kind of the main idea. There's other problems that are similar. When am I ever going to use this? We're going to eventually get into stuff like this very soon. All right, you're going to be looking at problems similar to this. You can kind of read this on your own time. All right, so we had worksheet 2 that was due today. I will check that tomorrow. The assignment that you should work on for the rest of the time is worksheet number 3. All right, and then again, don't forget the quiz is going to be pushed back to Thursday. The quiz, you have now learned everything you need to know for the quiz. The stuff that we're going to learn on Wednesday will not be on that quiz. It'll be on a different quiz. All right, thank you for listening. Have a good one.